Thank you very much. Today I'm going to talk about our OMC working group, the Open Method of Coordination, and I would first like to ask a raise of hands who knows what the Open Method of Coordination group is or does. Two, excellent. So I'm going to talk a little bit into what we're doing, because the term itself doesn't really reflect, I feel, the inspiration and the expertise we have gathered in this group. We're about halfway through, so I want to remember you all to remember this as a framework of where we're now at. We're halfway building the bridge, and we'll come back to the end result of this one later on, but I want you to remember we're halfway through the process. We're trying to figure out what we can do to strengthen the multiple roles of public libraries, and I think it's very fitting what the theme of this conference is, to ReAImagining Public Collections, and I think it also is up to all of us to reimagine what the impact of public libraries can be in today's society with all the challenges. Jumping through the EU work plan for culture 2023-2026, and this is actually where our mandate as a group stems from. Specifically the second one, culture for people, enhancing cultural participation in the role of culture in society. And I think an important aspect in this is the access to culture and the access to cultural participation. And what, it's a bit chunk of text, but I'll walk you through it, but I think it's good to have this on the sheet. As I said, we are asked to give advice, government recommendations, as how to strengthen the multiple roles of public libraries as access points and transmitters of cultural works, skills, and European values. And just to make it more human in a way, we are 25 EU countries and sort of 35 experts from all the countries combined looking at this question. I think that is one of the main perks for me personally, but also having the method of this group, is to really engage in multiple talks, multiple days, on learning from each other's experience and learning what's happening in each country to make it more accessible, to really strengthen them as access point and transmitters. And it has been, we started in February, our next meeting is going to be early November, and it has been such valuableness as yesterday, to share in the European setting what's going on in our fields. And I think we should allow ourselves to do more of this as we can. And what so good to say that the OMC group is formed by a mandate of the European Council, the member states. And the rationale in that is, and again, put it out from the mandate itself, that libraries play a key role in Europe's democratic, social, cultural, and educational landscape, significant contribution to building democracy, citizen engagement, and public participation. And they welcome diverse groups, develop programs and activities reflecting current day societal challenges, and provide access to pluralist and reliable information. Not even mentioning all of it, that's quite a lot. So can we rephrase that into specific multiple roles? In looking at specifically at strategies, policies, best examples. Because how can we strengthen the multiple roles if it's too much of a broad slate, to say so. Narrowing it down, firstly, as the mandate said, I'd like to look at 5 specific roles which can be played. The community hub. A lot has been talked yesterday also about fighting disinformation. Again, this is all from the mandate which was made by the member states. And I think information integrity is also a very nice phrase which I've heard more and more being used also in the plus setting. Sustainable development, from education but also to resilience of communities. I think we've seen a lot over last summer again of how much is being asked of communities with extreme weather conditions and how the library can play part of it. One very beautiful example in Greece, after wildfires happened, how the library played a role to educate people, but also to provide shelter for people who lost part of their safe spaces at home. I think very viable today, the digital media and green literacies. How can we use AI in a good way in society if we put on that the AI literary skills or digital skills to begin with? And promoting literacy and reading, which I would say is the obvious perhaps from the library perspective. And what we'll do at the end of this group is we'll have an output of a report, hopefully pleasantly readable, but also we really want to kind of kickstart new national discussions and debates on the multiple rules. With manuals, toolkits, or examples being used in other OMC groups, mapping of funding and training opportunities, but also organizing another conference is the plan which is being explored. Diving a little deeper, because we're, as I said, we're 35 people. It's quite a large group to be working on one report together. So we said perhaps we can split it up to 3 subgroups. And I want to walk you kind of through every subgroup, and I'm going to go in depth with you on specifically the first subgroup. What the first one has done over the summer is identifying societal challenges and adding best practices. So as I said, one of the examples is the one from Greece, the reaction to the wildfires. Also specific examples when it comes to how can you engage children with digital media in a good way and educating the parents in that sense. Also varying from creating beehives next to libraries to engage with more nature and learning, especially from all ages and at the community feel. So a very quite big range of how libraries from their role impact different societal challenges. And as I said, I will go into this a bit deeper on the next slide. What I think is going to be also very interesting here today is the second group, which is charting the political policy landscape regarding legislation, strategy, and data. So to which extent do we see public libraries being integrated in legislative framework? Is it mentioned in strategies? And for instance, looking at the Irish strategy for information integrity, how can we use or strengthen libraries as gateways to having not only understandable data, but also accessible to everyone and understandable. And I think the data itself is also a very interesting starting point. Can we kind of visualize how many people use collections on a daily basis of libraries? How many people visit? How many activities are being deployed? How many staff have we got working? To really get kind of a better scope and view of the current state of public libraries in the European state. And I think important as well as the third subgroup, looking at mapping conditions. So we're saying we see multiple roles. Are all librarians able to engage with all these multiple roles? Are we asking too much, too little? And what is needed in terms of training or peer-to-peer learning, or even AI as a tool? I can imagine in the very near future, and we're seeing more and more being used as helping them with toolkits how to strengthen their role by using tools which are maybe viable, available. And now looking at the societal challenges, 9 have been identified. And what I find interesting here is we all know the reading, education, and lifelong learning, I think, is a role for libraries. But splitting these 9 out and then combining it with EU policies, an access point to culture, closely to reading. I think social cohesion is one which is maybe underestimated in many spaces of how important it is. And we're seeing more and more research in the Netherlands when it comes to the role public libraries playing during the pandemic. It's a place where people found information, but also people really was having a community that information was being spread to. Digital development, I think, is perhaps one of the most urgent ones. We need to look at how we can or should strengthen the role of public libraries, because it's not per se engaging with the rapid developments of digital development, but do we have the skills to, from the librarian's perspective, and do all the staff have the skills to also engage with the audience. So explaining what's going on, we're having that curiosity, both of them, to explore new developments. And last week our Minister of Culture visited the library and they showed an example of how they taught small children 2 to 4 on the mechanisms behind coding and computing. By saying, look, if you do it in a playful way, the computer takes one step at a time. So if you're having this game of just flat posts on the floor saying you need to have this robot move one step forward each time. And really not per se having children engage with AI or digital screens or tools, but really ingraining in their mind, a computer works this way of taking steps, and can you really compute it yourself in a playful way from very early age. Economy and employment, and we're seeing a lot where it comes to also finding jobs, having the skills to not only dress for the occasion, but also are you able to write a good letter, but also are you looking at your own development and the future, so are you knowing how you can access more further education to further engage in your career path. I'm not going to say all of them, but it's just going to highlight health and well-being and finally access to information, where I think health and well-being, again, linked with social cohesion, but I think as a separate societal challenge where it's really, do we have access to healthcare, which can be more digitized, but also do we understand more when AI is also entering in a massive scale in the healthcare world? Do patients have the skills and the knowledge to really understand decisions being made with them or by the doctors on which treatment could be better? I'm not saying that libraries have the answers to all of it, but I think there's a necessary infrastructure with libraries and partners from the cultural and social sector that we need to have a certain groundwork laid down in order to advance in all societal challenges. And I think democracy and access to information, a lot have been mentioned about it yesterday and today as well, with the more and more increase of widely available information, made also, whether it's, the DALI example of the former speaker, do we have the skills to know what is real, what is created, and do we have an engaging debate on that amongst each other? And are we able to have that not only online or with a close group of people, but really in more of a dialogue and debate setting? And then we're going back to the first slide, because this was about 10 years ago, and the bridge was finished, and it was actually a library. This is near a town in Frankfurt, Staatsbibliothek Bad Wilden. The city did not have a place for a library, and they also needed a bridge. And this is the example I would like to give all of you to take home, because I've been working myself now 3 years in the library field, and I think there is nothing which is impossible when it comes to the role libraries can play. I think the biggest challenge is that we need to make clear focus, and we need to make choices on what are the big societal challenges. In this case, perhaps crossing the water was one of the challenges for the city. But the more we focus and make choices actively in which part do you want to strengthen or not, what do we feel are the big societal challenges, the more we can really strengthen the library on a local level and really aid communities in their way forward. And this is high on my list now to visit this bridge, because I just recently discovered it, and I think it's such a weird example of how a library can play another role, which I've never thought of. Thank you very much.